We're having our next virtual technology conference on August 15th. Don't forget to register early because we filled all our seats as of 3:31 a.m. Eastern Time on April 30th. We have a 100-seat license for track 1, a 100-seat license for track 2. We register up to 225 people because not everybody attends. But I had people trying to register this morning, and one of the gals, I attended the meeting where she was, and she said she probably wouldn't be registering until late. Well, she registered, she tried to get in after registration was closed, as well as there were no seats left. We have 86 people here now, and the most we have ever had in a presentation is 98. We had 2 seats left. And with that, I can't let anybody in, or we can't let anybody in over 100 seats. Zoom will not let us do that. But again, not everybody always attends. So we do sometimes have empty seats. I have only ever had one person actually cancel. So having a wait list wouldn't be too effective because people don't take the time to cancel. They just don't attend. Thank you for the big smile, Lynn. I appreciate that. And all by itself, I'm on screen too. So we're here to talk about what you guys want to talk about. We want to share information. We're doing, as I've been working on the Zoom initiative since week 1 in March. David Williams was kind enough to buy 2 additional free pro licenses. We're doing the $14.99 a month routine in order to let groups dip their toe into Zoom. It is if people had paid attention to the security options in the first place, we wouldn't have had Zoom bombing. But hey, they started out with 20 million daily meetings in December. They went to 200 million daily April 1st. And on April 22nd, they had 300 million daily meetings going on. And most of those people have no clue about security. And to be honest with you, we've never had to pay attention to it either. We've been using this since 2014 and enjoying every minute of it. And all of a sudden, we had the COVID-19 come around, and everybody jumped on the Zoom bandwagon.
Okay,
what's his name? Eric, the CEO, has webinar, and week 1, he took ownership of everything, which in the United States doesn't happen that often anymore, and put out a 90-day plan, and they are moving right along. They instantly hired experts where they needed some. And as of May 30, everybody needs to be using version 5.0. In fact, you will not be able to use Zoom unless you have downloaded 5.0. It has the AES 256 end-to-end encryption. And they are a good group of people. Huey is here, me and Jim Evans, when they first started out. Eric wanted to upgrade WebEx, and they weren't interested. So he and 40 engineers left WebEx and started a lot of good people that are doing it, and it's unfortunate what happened, but I think the old saying used to be the problem is between the keyboard and the computer, and the people sitting in the chairs that didn't do the security options have to say they have a lot to do with the problem. So, John, who's monitoring the chat box? Anybody?
I wasn't. We do have a hand up.
Okay.
And it just said, just for full disclosure, while I was the one that purchased the extra licenses, that didn't come out of my pocket. Just so the people don't think that, No,
that he is a grand and glorious and wonderful person above and beyond. They all belong to APCUG, but he gave me permission to do that and go along with the Zoom initiative.
Okay.
And I've been working night and day on it.
JB Burke, can you unmute yourself?
He's already unmuted.
Okay. Do you want to say what you need to say? JB, can we hear you?
Well, let's switch to Gabe. You have your hand up.
Sure. Just I wanted to make a point about Zoom 5. Even though I make an effort to keep all my apps updated and current on my iPad, I discovered that the version 5 app was available even though it had not triggered an automatic update. So if you're using the iOS or iPad OS version, once a day, or depending how often you're using Zoom and getting into Zoom sessions, you might check in the App Store to make sure that you have the most current version. It was easy. I looked for the Zoom app in the App Store, and instead of telling me I could open it, it asked if I wanted to upgrade. I did, and then I opened it. So that seems to be an app that for some reason doesn't trigger the automatic update, so you might just want to keep an eye on it.
George from Victoria, will you please unmute yourself?
So we've been running Zoom meetings for a couple of weeks now. We did a trial test that was worthwhile, where people just logged in and got used to it. We haven't had a great attendance. I'm kind of surprised that we've only had, our most count was about 20 people turn up. Our membership is about 160. So, you know, that's going okay. It's the other thing we've been doing is sharing photo albums, which Judy is aware of, and Google photo albums, so that people here can, although they can't go out and have photo shoots as a group, they can go out individually and then they contribute their photographs to the albums. So that's been worthwhile. So between the Zoom meetings and the photo albums, I'd say our club is surviving.
JB here again. I've got my microphone on now. Can you hear me?
We can
Yes.
hear you.
All right. What I wanted to say was that I had my microphone, unfortunately, it was turned off 2 times. I was muted and I had my microphone turned off. Anyway, a week and a half ago or so, I went online to sign up for a 1-year contract for Zoom for the Prescott Computer Society. And I did what I do frequently, which is to go and do a search for Google search for Zoom coupons.
Mm-hmm.
And I found immediately a 15% coupon, and I was able to take 15% off the annual cost. So if you sign up for another Zoom contract, do that first. Find out what's out there in the way of coupons. You might save some money for the club.
Mm-hmm.
Judy?
To talk about what George talked, I was at their meeting, and when I attend meetings all over the United States, and it's been so much fun seeing the people that I deal with, some on a question is at your first Zoom meeting, that you have everybody send the coordinator of the meeting a few words about how much you enjoyed it, what you learned. You know, it really kind of was like social because you could see everybody and talk among yourselves. And then have that person send that out to all the members and say, we missed you at the meeting. This is what our attendees, you know. Some people have had more attendees at the in-person meeting than they ever have in person. And many groups have had people they have not seen in years. With the Los Angeles Computer Society, it was one lady who hadn't set foot in the meeting room for 4 years. And everybody was ecstatic to see her. She loved the meeting. She had a lot to. I see most groups with more people.
John, leave us again?
No, I'm trying to figure out. I thought it was me, but it's Judy was, somebody else said Judy was cutting out. So I thought it was me.
With this computer as it is right now, everything is possible.
Okay, so it's not me this
Oh,
time.
you made me the host.
Yeah, because I thought I was going bad. I had to. My computer locked up, and I left for a little bit and came back.
Okay, well, I can make you host again.
Now you keep the host. Make me a co-host if you want.
Okay. Co-host. Okay, because we got a couple people. Ron Brown's got his hand up, and then we'll get to John.
Good afternoon. I have two comments. The first comment would be on our Tech for Seniors show on Monday last week, we had about 80 people on, and 80% of them had their own personal Zoom account. And I would encourage all your members of your clubs to get their own personal account and play around with it a little bit. And I gave an example of happy hour that I instilled and invited a whole bunch of people at 4:30. I went up to see my wife and said, I invited 20 people to happy hour. She said, what? And of course, they had to bring their own appies and drinks because it was on Zoom. And these were family members across the country. So we had a nice, so it's become a really important part of our week. Now, I got emails from people on our Tech for Seniors wanting to join our happy hour. They didn't understand it was for family. But I do think that, you know, you can have a lot of fun with it individually. And once you get your individual account, you can play around with it. And then you get to, as I said, 80% of the people that we polled had their own personal account, which is great. The second thing I wanted to say is many of you, and Huey and I have talked about this a lot, is use Chromebooks. And there's nothing wrong with using your Chromebook for your Zoom. The problem is this: a Chromebook uses the Android app. So when you go to the Play Store and you download the Zoom Android app, and if you run the Zoom Android app on your Chromebook, it's a lot different than the web version. And you'll get confused, and it doesn't work as well as the web version. So my advice, if you have a Chromebook, is uninstall the Chrome Android app from your Chromebook and use the link through the website. You know, just if you get a link, just click on the link and it'll install through Chrome. And I think that works a lot better. And we have a lot of people get confused when they try to use the Android app on a Chromebook. So those are my two comments.
Thanks.
Okay, now I'm just going down the list. Hopefully it looks like it's in order. John
Ruderath.
Okay, I was close.
Okay.
You know who I was talking about.
Yeah, right. Say, we're having one of the ladies volunteered, and she's calling up all the past members now. We've been on Zoom for 6 weeks now, and we meet weekly. So I would say things are going along pretty well. I would say the number of people are staying right up there. I don't know what we'd be doing without having these kind of meetings getting together. Let me just give a little bit of a commercial. I don't know if you can talk this. We just had a presentation. It was incredible. The guy does these research papers on Excel, and it shows all the different things. So he did something about this COVID-19, and he actually showed by changing values the number of people that would change, just like they do if you watch the Trump show on Fox News once in a while. They have those charts there. You wonder how they get it. They get that information. They can tell what the effect is, and it adds so much credibility to what's going on. Boy, if you could talk this guy into making that presentation, I would hope you'd be as wowed as I was, because this is phenomenal that he just sat down there and spent about an hour getting it all together, and he made the presentation. But it does show that the people can analyze this and figure out if they have more of these and less of those, what effect it has on the return rate as to the people are making it and people who are dying and all of that. Phenomenal. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're now going to, hopefully Robert just a little late. Paul Howard.
Howdy. Glad to see everybody. I'm seeing far more of our APCUG friends than usual, and that's a pleasure. I'm the president of the Potomac Area Technology and Computer Society in Northern Virginia. We have an association with the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute at George Mason University, and we have been Zooming our meetings together since about 2014, I believe. Ollie has professional video conferencing equipment, and we're able to connect that to Zoom at a significant cost of $500 a year. But we've had a pretty good result in that, and many of our programs are available on our website for folks to take a look at. We've recorded them. I just wanted to make a note of a couple of bumps in the road that we've run into along the way. As many of you have probably found, when folks are talking from home and they don't have a headset, their rooms tend to be kind of echoey. So we've, in some cases, when depending on the availability, and that's of course a challenge, we had at least one individual manage to get a separate microphone, podcast type mic, and hook that up. In this case, it was on an Apple computer, and that seemed to do a better job. So that's one thing I might suggest. Typically, folks sit a little too far away from webcams, so that tends to present some audio issues. Another thing I've personally discovered with my computer, while I have a fairly decent i5 processor with 16 gigs of RAM, after Zoom conferences, typically I've had my email client seem to stop taking emails. So you might consider, after Zoom meetings, it might not be a bad idea to restart your computer and get things rehomed in, and things might go better. I also want to mention that thanks to Judy and John Kraut, who is sitting in the middle of my screen, and a bunch of other people on our website, and it's PATACS, PATACS.org, you will find a link to a Zoom reference library where John and a number of other people have done a ton of articles on how different things work. We have matrices for about 6 different kinds of computers and devices, where most of the things have links, so you can find out how to test your microphone or test your headphone and speakers, and do a whole lot of other things for particular devices. So you might want to give that a look. Thanks very much.
Hey, thank you, Paul. That's great.
Okay, thank you. So someone may want to send out that URL.
I will.
Oh,
I'll send out resources.
Okay, thank you. Now we're going to go to Mitch. Are you around, Mitch? Come on down, Mitch. Unmute yourself.
It's Mitch Breyers from Naples, Florida, and our group here is the Naples Mac Friends User Group, better known as NMUGS, and it's NMUG.com. We've been using Zoom for about 6 or 7 months. We started off using it just as an easy way to record our meetings, because we post all of those on our website, and we meet weekly. And then, of course, when the virus hit, we started doing all of our meetings with Zoom. We usually have, we do weekly meetings. We usually have 55 to 65 people each week tuning in. And it seems to work well with one host, and then we have 2 or 3 co-hosts, and the co-hosts basically monitor the hands up and the questions. And then we do it just like you're doing it now. Somebody raises a question, and we go down the list and they chime in. But it's worked extremely well, and we've actually had, as somebody else mentioned, we've had people chime in that haven't come to a meeting in years, but they're still members of our club. And we've also, interestingly enough, had some people from other clubs around the country get permission from our website to be a guest and participate, just to see what we're doing and how our meetings are done. So if anybody's interested in that, they should go to our website, and there's a link to get a hold of the appropriate person. And again, it's nmug.com. Thank you. It was a great sessions today.
Thank you. Now we're going to turn it over to, did Judy want to say something?
Yes,
I'm
she
raising
did.
my hand.
Oh, okay. I was looking at the hands on the other place, not in.
No, okay. I attended the Westchester PCUG group in New York. They have one general meeting and 12 SIGs that are using Zoom. And I attended their digital camera SIG. When John trained and I tagged along the Central Kentucky Computer Society, they were wondering if they could have a digital camera SIG meeting. And I said, hey, the Westchester group does. So I tied those two groups together, and Central Kentucky's president, the lead of the digital camera group, and two other people will be attending the Westchester Camera SIG the end of May. And so they're both happy campers because the Westchester group SIG went wonderfully. I learned a great deal, and it'll give maybe some ideas to the CKCS group. It's all about working together.
Okay. Thanks, Judy. Now we're going to go to Lloyd. Lloyd, unmute yourself.
There we are. I'm unmuted.
Okay.
I'll give first a little bit about our background of my club, and then afterwards I've got some technical questions to ask Judy. First of all, I've been hosting meetings, physical meetings, for the Personal Computer Club of Toronto for years. And of course, I brought all my presentation equipment and I brought it to the meetings and everything else. But we have a problem because if our meetings are held after supper time, the traffic in Toronto area, the greater Toronto area, is horrific. And trying to get to meetings, you know, let's say scarfing down some supper and then trying to get to a meeting and everything else is just absolutely difficult. And we had a problem getting venues. At that time, we had people were, I think, liability-wise very concerned. And whether you went to a church, a synagogue, or to a municipal building that might be available, they wanted you to take out a phenomenal amount of liability insurance to use the premises. So we gave up, and I started to experiment with Skype with one or two members of our club, and we found it just wasn't doing the trick. And then I found Zoom, and I started Zoom about 5 years ago. And for business reasons, I picked up on it and was having face-to-face meetings via Zoom with clients and getting a lot more accomplished. And again, it provided a tremendous amount of flexibility, meeting clients at a time that's convenient for them and not having to travel through this traffic to try and get to a meeting, either by the client or for me, is just fantastic. So that's to be said about Zoom. One of the things about Zoom that we found over Skype was that you could actually present a streaming video from YouTube. So in other words, if it's how to do something, there are a phenomenal amount of stuff on how to do things, including APCUG's videos now, because you've been recording your wonderful sessions for your virtual technology seasonal meetings or conferences. So that was a great thing, and we could start showing that stuff. And of course, a lot of people want to strut their technology knowledge and everything else via YouTube. So that was a great thing. Now, I've got a couple of technical questions, and some of them are, well, one in particular geared towards APCUG and Judy. I would like to know what you found as far as advantageous about Eventbrite. I've had some personal bad experiences with Eventbrite, and I was just wondering, and again, I throw this out strictly not as a criticism, but why not use something like Constant Contact? There are other things available if you want to control your email list or your meeting list and so on. So Judy, you take it from here. Just tell me.
I do control the list. I have 1,200 people on the list. Each quarter, I update it. I capture all of the member group addresses of the officers in the membership database, and I upload them up. And if there's new people, and there's always usually 3 or 4, they join that 1,200. And I find Eventbrite extremely easy to use. We've been using it for many years. I've never had a problem. And it's very user-friendly. You copy and paste your emails into their box, and doesn't take much formatting to do. We have a wonderful template, and above all, it's free. I have used the other program that Lloyd mentioned, and it's fine, but Eventbrite is super easy to use. And after all the work put into the VTCs, super easy really, is the way to go. And I do have to say that many groups out there are thinking maybe they'll only be Zoom groups. And I always tell them about Lloyd's Toronto group and a, short version of what he just described. And it just gives them an idea that, yes, you can just have a, Zoom group, and life does go on for members. And every once in a while, he has somebody come in from Israel, and a lot of us come in from the States to attend his meetings.
Judy?
Okay, the other thing I just want to mention about the bad experience with Eventbrite was the fact is that they are a marketing type of organization. And I got hit with a tremendous amount of advertising of every single meeting in the area where I am. And they targeted me, and eventually I just said enough is enough. And I just walked away from them and decided on something else. But if you've had success, I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying that there's a lot of information going out there, and sometimes some of these people are capturing it and misusing it. It could have just been a local phenomena. That's a possibility. So I leave it at that.
Judy, as a comment, we talked about this before because we use it for registration purposes, and we had said that Zoom has a good registration purpose, but because we've already been using Eventbrite for years for registering, we wanted to stay with them.
The Zoom registration process is so convoluted, it's absolutely incredible. Eventbrite is straightforward. There's a couple of groups that are using it as a way to control who will be attending their meeting. They use Eventbrite to register the attendees, and then they send them the link, just like I sent you the guys the link a little after midnight last night. Again, we don't charge for anything. It is confusing for people because they receive an email from Eventbrite that says, please, start your account. Well, I always say you do not need an account for in any way to attend a Zoom meeting. You don't need a Zoom account. You don't need an Eventbrite account.
Now I'm going to go.
I can understand where you're coming from, Lloyd. Like I said, I've used the constant one before too, and I prefer Eventbrite.
I think Lloyd had another question or something.
JB?
No, that's about it. I will say one thing when you mentioned about the convoluted part of Zoom. When I start setting up a meeting, if you just want to use the default in Zoom, what happens is when you send out the invitation meeting, Zoom does not allow me to have a PCC. So what happens with Zoom is that everybody can see who else is coming, and I didn't like that part of Zoom. So what I do is, just to make it a little more easy for me, I've got my list, and I copy and paste the information into my own customized email message and send it out. And there's something else too that everybody should be thinking about. I've been toying about this one idea. Unlike APCUG, I will send out the email messages to the list of people that are on the list. But one of the things is I do disclose and give them the link in advance. And that's, again, I understand where APCUG is coming from, but I do that because somebody the last minute just wants to come into the meeting, let's say 1 minute to, in my time now, it was 1 o'clock when it started. But let's say that I've been doing everything all week. So I have to wait to get that last email message either the day of the meeting or the day before to get that link. And sometimes it's just the scheduling is bad for me, but that's me personally. So, that's just my situation.
I've been sitting in this little chair here since 9 o'clock California time, fielding emails from people who can't get in, did not get the link. Maybe then they find it in their spam folder. So APCUG does have somebody who monitors every VTC for at least 3 hours, from 2 hours before it starts to before they're on, so to speak.
Okay. Huey's had his hand up for a while, so.
Oh, I have a question for Huey. Huey, I saw you on Facebook with your picture. Whenever you come up with a new one, don't forget to send it to me. Unmute yourself.
Just came up with it 9 o'clock this morning, so.
I love it.
I've been playing with another program to do a little presentation on. Anyway, a couple of things I do want to talk about. One is one of the groups that I'm helping, and I can be on that list of people willing to help groups that want to do Zoom, because I've been out of it as well. I've been on attending a lot of meetings, and I am going to try to get to the Naples group as well. But I've been just sitting in on some. I've helped others. I've been a part of some of the meetings. And one of the groups this past week, one of the larger groups, gets a huge number of people at their live meetings, and they were going to do their first virtual meetings. We weren't sure how many people would show up. So what we decided to do, and what we did do, was those of us who ran the meeting were on Zoom. There were 3 of us. President of the group, somebody monitoring YouTube, and myself. And one thing that Zoom has the ability is you can live stream to either a YouTube channel that you have pre-set up in advance, or a Facebook, or both. And so what we did is we told all of the members of the group to go to YouTube and go to their YouTube channel, and they could watch the meeting from there. There is a chat box that goes on during the YouTube meeting, but we didn't have to worry about anybody, any crosstalk, any feedback. We didn't have to worry about anybody Zoom bombing us, because they weren't on Zoom. They were just watching it on YouTube. The other advantage to that is at the end of the meeting, it automatically turns into a video, and you don't have to upload or download anything to make it become live on your YouTube channel. It worked very well. We were hoping that we could add the chat to the recording, and apparently YouTube has something that if you use their editor, it doesn't then include the chat. And we cut out the beginning and some of the ending of the meeting, and so the chat wasn't included. So this was our first experience with it. They have decided they were going to go with GoToMeeting. They've decided now to stay with Zoom, and we are going to YouTube the next meeting as well. And Judy has been tapped to do the speaking for that meeting. Okay. But you can also do it, as I said, besides YouTube, you can also do it through Facebook. So if your group has a lot of people on Facebook, they could be watching a stream on Facebook. Judy, in response to that?
Huey, what am I presenting at their group?
I'll have to go and look.
Would you please, because I don't know about it. I'm presenting to Sarasota and Laguna Woods next Tuesday and Wednesday. I don't have the computer.
Oh, you know what? Maybe you're right, and maybe no. Yeah, you're right. It's Sarasota. I've been doing so many of these things. I'm really confused. Yeah, it was Sarasota, and they're looking for a speaker for that other group. So yes, you're. Okay, anyway, they're going to have somebody speak to them as well. Any questions about how we did that?
Could you tell them how easy it is by just clicking on the box?
Yeah, there's just a box in Zoom to do it, but you have to have a YouTube channel set up in advance for your group. And once you have that, you just connect to it. There's a button in Zoom. You say go live YouTube, or YouTube Live. You press it, it then it asks for your password for your YouTube account. You type it in, and it connects, and you're then broadcasting on YouTube. It's that easy.
It really, Huey and I have tested this as well for Tech for Seniors, and we thought about it. Has anybody else here done this? It's really simple to do. It's amazing. It's amazing technology, and you can just have your speakers in the Zoom meeting and stream it out, and you have unlimited people that can watch it. Has anybody? I was interested. Has anybody else done this?
I've attempted to do it on Facebook, and did not get it through Zoom. I have done Facebook Live, on Facebook Live, and I think Judy's seen that done too.
Yeah.
I have not had any success trying to connect Zoom and Facebook, but I saw how easily YouTube was. So I went in and updated the YouTube channel for our local group, which went without any hitch. So next time I have something I can stream, I'm going to stream it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And the YouTube, I've been on the Facebook, it leaves a lot to be desired. This YouTube thing was absolutely seamless, just like anything else you watch. And on showing videos at your meetings, Zoom meetings, our recommendation is you download, if at all possible, to your hard drive and not rely on your bandwidth at this particular point in time when so many people are on the internet. Spectrum tells me it's because I'm too far from the node and we just have too many people using the internet in Santa Clarita Valley dispersed throughout, and that's why instead of 200 download, I'm only getting 100. So, you know, be aware of showing videos. And we are in, from APCUG wants to know how Susan and John Kraut have, Susan Mueller and John Kraut have moving backgrounds. They're virtual backgrounds. So if one of you guys would like to answer his question, that would be great.
Judy, this is John. I can answer that. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Good. Recent versions of Zoom for the past several months for PCs, I use Windows 10 at home, do come with a couple of sample virtual backgrounds that are videos rather than still photos. Some of them are in use today. Susan Mueller, she has the Northern Lights background running. That is one of the samples. In my case, I figured out a couple of nuances and then went out and shot a video with a camcorder and about a minute of video and turned it into the background you're seeing now. These are daffodils in my front yard. And the little trick in this is to run the video forwards and then run the video backwards. Now, why is that useful? It's because then nobody can tell when it begins or when it ends. And that's what I did. One of the documents that is on the PADACE's Zoom page does explain in considerable detail how to accomplish exactly what I've just described. And so if you're interested in do it yourself, you can read that document, and it goes into considerable detail about the video editing aspect of the work. If you just want to use the samples, I think there's 3 samples in the current version of Zoom. One of them is the Northern Lights. One of them is the beach scene. Lloyd, you're using the beach scene, I believe, and a couple of other people are also. So you can try those out. You may find, if you have an older computer with less graphics RAM, that it will tell you in order to implement a virtual background, you will need a green screen. Oddly enough, there are videos on YouTube that talk about making inexpensive green screens as backgrounds behind, physical backgrounds behind you. One of them, get this, one of them actually used green 22 by 28 inch poster board from Staples, put several up of them on his wall behind his seat. And that turned out to be a useful green screen. It's less expensive than buying the cloth version. It is a little bit more difficult to deploy and remove. But on the other hand, I thought it was a very creative solution. If you don't know about green screens, it's all started with a company called Chroma Key in the 1960s, and I'm not going to go into the history, but it's been around for ages. And Chroma Key is now out of business because it got simple to do with a PC, like we are doing today. That's it.
Okay. I saw Gabe had his hand up for a while, so let me go to Gabe, and then we'll get to you, Judy.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks. I just wanted to chime in to follow up something that Paul Howard said, the great story that he gave about PADAX here in DC. We've also got people regularly attending remotely, people who've moved away or people who are immobile or simply don't want to drive at night. And we have now pulled them back, or in the case of the people who moved away, we've retained them. And in the case of the people who don't want to come to evening meetings, we've got them involved by coming online. I don't think there's anybody else here from Washington Apple Pie, the other group in DC, the Apple group. We've been streaming meetings for a very long time. We record the meetings on site, and one of our members, Dale Harabak, does absolute brilliant editing. And so these are polished videos. These are not just stream of consciousness, stream of meeting. These are beautiful videos where during a Q&A, he will set up a split screen so you can see the people at the panel who are answering questions. You can see whoever is asking the question. This morning, I was on a Zoom chat with Washington Apple Pie. We have 2 meetings a month called a Clubhouse. And during normal times, we either meet at George Mason University or we meet at a church in nearby Bethesda, Maryland. We did the Clubhouse meeting this morning, which was probably 25 or 30 different people. And normally the Clubhouse is a little chaotic. People are sitting at different tables and chatting and people wandering back and forth. And you would think that something like that with really no structure, just not even a formal Q&A, would be a little bit painful to do in a Zoom chat. But it worked absolutely brilliantly between raising hands and people just being disciplined and not talking over each other. It was quite a successful meeting. And so this was not a presentation. This was basically what I sometimes describe to my wife as bogsat, bunch of guys sitting around a table, except we were all sitting around a virtual table and getting a lot done. And so it was quite effective. The other comment I would make about evening meetings is one of the monthly meetings that Apple Pie has is called the Afternoon Learners SIG. And that's 1 o'clock on a Thursday during each month. And that's for people who maybe don't like evening meetings. And we get some overlap, but also quite a different turnout for a different venue and a different time of day and a different day of week. And so one possibility for groups to just explore and see how they might draw more people into events is change the venue, change the location, change the time and day, and see what happens.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that too. That's a great idea. Try different things. It's the nice thing about doing these kind of meetings is the fact that you can have 1 o'clock. You can have an impromptu meeting. Okay, tomorrow let's get together and talk about something. I had a problem. Let's see if some people can help me.
The 2 most distressing things I sometimes hear from user groups, the first one is, we've never done that, so it must be a bad idea. And the other one is, we tried that once and it didn't work. And they may have tried it 15 years ago, but the institutional memory still holds a grudge. And so I was in a group for a while where it felt painful to me. The prime directive seemed to be never do anything for the first time. If it hadn't already been done, it was a bad idea. And both of those are bad mindsets to get trapped into. As Huey just said, try new stuff.
Bear in mind with your background, sometimes it's very distracting. And you really want people to focus on you when you're talking and not a bunch of stuff that's really winging around in the background. Huey had his green screen behind him, and now he's in a marina in Florida. Lloyd has gone to several different places with his. So the clicking on the arrow to the right of stop video, you can check out the virtual backgrounds. The state of my computer right now said there's absolutely nothing available. And I usually have the outer space ones. So, you know, this is going to be my late computer. And also take a look at yourself in your thumbnail. We'd love to be able to see you and not everything behind you or your ceiling. So you might need to move your laptop screen a little bit forward. Oh gosh, I love it, Huey. Or your webcam down a little bit. And when you talk, you need to be talking directly at your screen, not up at the webcam, because then you're like this. And you'll drown if your sprinklers go off, if you have them in the ceiling. So a little bit of staging goes a long way. Light in front of you is better than overhead. I have to deal with natural light. I could pull my drapes here, but hey, they're open weave, so it doesn't make any difference. There's certain times of the day that I don't look too shabby, and the other times I look like I'm in the mist.
I'll make another comment on pictures. I've been using that white silhouette that you see for me and several other people for quite a long time. And when asked why, I say I just don't like being on camera. But in the last week or two, I've read a couple of different articles that talk about, especially now, how we're all sequestering. Facial expression, body language is a very important part of communication. It makes you feel much more connected, much more linked. And so I'm actually weakening on my resolve to not turn on the camera. And so that's just another point to consider, that for those of us who've been camera shy for one reason or another, watching the Hollywood Squares, watching everybody talk, or switching to active speaker, there actually is more information being communicated. And so sooner or later, I might actually turn the camera on.
That's the beauty of the gallery view.
Yeah, and just to make a note, it said Ron Brown listed in the chat a royalty-free pictures and video site, so y'all can go check that out. It's in the.
If everybody is on here right now, if you signed in with your name in the chat box, you will get all of the websites that people are putting into the chat box, because it will be downloaded and it'll come to me as a text file and I'll send it out. But the caveat is you need to put your first and last name in the chat box so I can get your email address off, oh my gosh, the Eventbrite form.
Okay.
Now, does anybody have any
Gabe
problems?
needs to remember to wear clothes when he turns his camera on.
Well, when I do the training, and John does too, we say, you know, you look really nice from here up, and you can be sitting there in your underwear for all we know. But, you know, you need to know if you're going to get up and leave the room, you need to click on stop video, or we just might see you walking off in your underwear and you've forgotten about it.
Well, there's a wonderful Dilbert cartoon that was actually several years ago that showed Dilbert unshaven and unkempt wearing a bathrobe on a video chat, and he is holding up in front of his webcam a hand puppet of himself dressed in business attire. Mm-hmm. And so there are a lot of ways to solve this problem.
Yeah, and as I said, I did a quick meeting the other day with some of the members from my group, and a guy hadn't turned on his camera, and I said, Bob, you can turn on your camera. He said, no, Judy told me in the email that I could wear my pajamas, and I got my pajamas on this morning.
You tell him outstanding for me, okay?
Yes, and I thanked him very profusely. I said, you actually read the email that I sent out.
Oh, yes, so few people do. Would you ask him if he was wearing his fuzzy slippers? Because John finally sometimes does that for me when he's in his basement.
Yeah, okay. Now we'll move over to John Crowd. I think he's sitting there laughing, so he's probably got something.
As you can see, I switched my background. Judy hit on an important point. For presenters, it's very important that if you choose to use a background, which I think is a smart idea, the way I put it, it's easier to set up a virtual background than to clean up the physical one.
Yes.
So I switched to a very amorphous video it's not a video, it's a still that I created actually in PowerPoint. So in this case, this is the kind of background that I'd recommend for presenters because it doesn't distract from the image of the presenter's face. There are some I've seen even now, some creative videos that are being used as backgrounds here, which are marvelous. The one of the beer being poured, I thought was wonderful. But the point is that it's fun, but it's not the sort of thing you'd want to use as a presenter unless you're talking about beer. Another thing that we've done, and we've talked, we've produced on the Pat Aces Zoom page an article that's specifically for Zoom presenters to talk about things you need to do in terms of understanding how to share a screen, and also how to prepare your own situation. We've even got a separate article on lighting, which was inspired by something Paul Howard told me about the way he lights his computer room. So I've taken that to heart, Paul. I've got that shop light in place now. So there's a lot of things you can look at and think about to help people who are presenters, and some of them don't have a lot of experience with Zoom. Certainly everybody in this meeting does, but that doesn't mean that presenters are going to be happy with that first-time experience. And so, among other things, we teach them how to do a meeting of one, a solo meeting, so that they can just iron out all the bugs. That's it.
Okay.
Huey mentioned in the chat box that we have WebArounds. Mine is blue. Mine is 56 inches. It's older than, it's as old as Zoom is for me, with 2014. Huey has a brand new one. His is 60 inches and a lot bigger. That one, I have to send mine back to you because it knocks things off on the side here for me. But they are at Amazon. When Huey and I bought our first ones, they were $30. We got them at CES the first year the nurses were selling them. Now they're over $100 with tax and $18 and something for me to California shipping. And it attaches to the back of your chair. Very good. Art uses an old bed sheet. Gene Barlow used a bed sheet. When he would give his online presentations, I said to him one time, Gene, what is your background? He says, Judy, it's a sheet. It's covering up the books in my bookcase. Okay, fine. Who needs help with starting Zoom? Or, oh, I love Lydia's room color is very complimentary to her skin tone. Mary Frances, I appreciate you saying that about her, because that is such a lady thing. We do colors, so to speak. But does anybody need any help with getting started with Zoom, with taking care of members who are squirrely about using it? Resources, anything? Let us know.
To answer your question, yes, we have a member who replied to our invitation that they don't want anything to do with Zoom. And I replied with, it's really simple, and offered to have somebody call her, or her could call a number. And I haven't heard anything since. I don't know what had happened, but I want to respect this person's privacy. But what does everybody think? Should we reach out and make a call? See if we can get this member to join Zoom?
If you do, you're from Wisconsin, right?
Right.
Okay, it's a sickness with me. I recognize people's email addresses and where they're from. I have a standard thing that I send out, that what Zoom's problems were, how Eric, the CEO, has taken care of them, the experts he has working with it. And in our meeting, we check this box, we check that box, and it's all encrypted. And life goes on. I don't happen to have members who are squirrely about that kind of stuff, but I have done that with every single person that I have heard from that is anxious about using it, and the majority of them kind of, come around. But if you're going to have a holdout, there's not going to be a darn thing. We have one group that is a total holdout, and it's so sad, because if they would use Zoom, they're going to keep their group together, and I honestly think if they're dark, their group will go away.
Thank you.
Yes, Deborah, I will. And Deborah, are you from Colorado? If so, are you still doing a newsletter? Because I haven't gotten a copy of anything this year.
Yes,
and I love them for push.
Yes, I'm from Colorado, and we'll have to get those to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I had that on my list here to ask Cliff. I bug anybody at any time.
Lloyd's got his hand up again. Oh, there he is. Lloyd, unmute yourself.
Yeah, I know. I was too. Okay, I just wanted to mention something else, and there's a Zoom feature, and if you're talking about perhaps these people may want one-on-one rather than embarrass themselves in front of a group. Zoom has a chat feature. It's not the chat that you're used to with the group here that you're watching, but it's like instant messaging. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with it, but I'm very close friends with a person that's out of town, and he and I can communicate almost instantly, immediately, and then just go right into a video Zoom meeting. And I just make sure that if I'm going to be available, I've got my Zoom turned on. And he knows from looking at this chat group, they have a thing called contacts, and you get yourself set up as a contact. And of course, you don't want all the people that you don't want in that contact list, because then they're going to be watching you as to when you go on Zoom. But it's a very powerful feature. And one of the beauties of this is not only can you do everything you do at a Zoom meeting, like exchange files and so on, it's a fantastic one-on-one. And if I was just thinking too with this, I know you have the same problems as we do with the COVID crisis. If you can have a member of your family that has access to a computer, you could be in constant contact with them 24/7 if you really wanted to be. Yeah. And it's a really amazing feature. Maybe one day somebody will display, what you can and cannot do. But as I said before, sometimes myself and this friend of mine, we're testing out equipment backwards and forwards to see how it works. And it's very interesting to do. Very powerful feature. Just thought I'd let you know.
Thank you. Bob G, could you use your other background, please? The one that's way cool. Everybody needs to see that. And if you are having your first or second Zoom meeting presentation, you need to have Bob G give you his 2020 security presentation, because it's funny, it's informative. We think we know everything about security, and here comes Bob G, and I'm writing on my shorthand tablet like crazy, the notes and everything. But he's a good person to give a presentation, as are the folks in the Speakers Bureau, because we've all used Zoom for giving presentations for years.
Is that what you want to?
Is that the one you're talking about, Judy?
Is that your chat? Is that what they have? That's your Avast one? I thought that one was up close and more personal.
Okay. While we're doing that, John Kraut wants to say something.
I think it would help many of us if we had a discussion on the specifics of why people refuse to use Zoom. I can think of at least a couple of reasons. One, they're just not familiar with it. Two, they don't know how to install something on their computer. And three, the negative media reports, specifically the ones in March about when Zoom was being slammed, about some of the security issues. My son also found on Facebook at least 3 organized Facebook groups devoted to Zoom bombing, and one screen capture of a Zoom bombing application called Z War Dial that actually dials all possible Zoom meeting IDs in order to find out which ones are currently active. In other words, to facilitate Zoom bombing. I have some ideas about how to address at least the first 2, but I wanted to hear if there were other reasons that people are aware of in their groups for a resistance to using Zoom.
I got an invitation to a groups meeting where everybody RSVP'd, and 2 of them said I don't even know how to turn on my laptop, so I can't attend. The other one said, if I turn on my laptop, I'm not going to know what to do. And my comment to myself in my head was, what have these people been doing all these years going to weekly meetings? You know, haven't they learned anything? And I imagine they just, you know, just plain old weren't interested, and that was just kind of a flip answer from them. But mostly I run into, it's the fear of the unknown. You know, they don't know how to download it. They don't know how to install it. And I tell people, you only need to learn 1, 2, 3, 4 things. You only need to learn 4 things. And at every meeting that you have, you need to, if you've got new people coming in, you need to go over mute, video, chat, and reactions, and how to get out of the meeting.
I'll make
or everything else. It's very simple. And if you tell them that you only have to know 4 things, I'll be more than happy to go over them with you. That kind of works.
I'll make one comment on that. As soon as I discovered that I could run Zoom on the iPad, I stopped doing it on my computer. And I listened to people talking about problems and issues and where to find something on the computer. And compared to that, the iPad is just brick simple. You install an app, you open Zoom, or you click a link, and there you are. And so if people have a choice between using a PC and a tablet, I'd suggest the tablet. The other thing is that I've heard that people who try to use Zoom from the browser rather than installing an app on the computer or on a tablet have more trouble. And so sometimes people like to do it through the browser. Anecdotally, I've been hearing that people have different problems with the browser that just don't occur if you actually install the app.
That's why we say click on the link in the email. I don't include anything in my email but that. No phone numbers, no nothing. Click on this link, and I tell them it'll work for these 4 types of devices. And you'll love this, Gabe. Any meeting that I have been to where people have had problems, it was always with iPads. So it all depends on what you're familiar with.
They must be holding them upside down, because I've certainly not had any problems.
I know, but that's what you use.
One of the things that I wanted to suggest, a lot of this comes down to I have no experience with it. We can't do this right now, but perhaps we will be back to physical meetings in July and August. And I wanted to suggest that you hold what I call a lab meeting. And that's the case where people bring in their laptop or their iPad or their Android phone. And we literally do the installs for them during the meeting and give them the basics of how to join a meeting, how to enable the audio, how to mute the audio, and that sort of thing. That is something, when I was involved in a group in the 90s, that's something we did with considerable success. And it's one thing that I wanted to suggest that we might consider in the near future. That's it.
Bob G.
There are excellent videos on YouTube that will take a novice from step 1 through connection. And all they have to do is just follow the video, pause when they want to do something, then start it up again.
The Geeks on Tour, we love them. Chris's videos on how to use Zoom, she is so patient. Her voice is so calming. But that's what Huey and John and I do. When we do our training for leadership, or we attend a first meeting and get everybody used to using it, we start in the left-hand corner, reading readiness, and walk everybody through it, and we all do everything at the same time. And Herman keeps raising his waving, so Herman, on to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I assume you can hear me. I'm from Bellagio down in Florida. We hold our meetings in the evening when we have people come in. We usually had a half hour, sometimes even an hour beforehand, for people to bring in laptops, tablets, etc., and give them a hands-on help. And that always used to work. The other thing I'd like to ask, I've had an error on my main PC running Zoom, an error 1132, and I'm wondering if this august body, anybody knows anything what might cause that. I've done some lookup. It seems to be some sort of setting in the interface, the internet interface, but everything else works fine on the machine. Anybody hear of an error 1132?
What browser are you using?
Using Chrome. Either Firefox or Chrome has the same problem. So I think it's something inherent in the interface with the internet. But interestingly enough, everything else works on the computer, and I've looked up, I've done a lot of Google work on it, and it really haven't found anything that other than some low-dist program which will solve all your problems. It said something about error-mapped alignment.
I'd give Zoom a call. They do answer the phone. If nothing else, you start with sales, because they're always willing to sell something, and say, oh, you know, I know you're not the one to help me, but I've been on hold for 25 minutes with tech support. No, don't say that. But they are still answering the phone. They will answer the phone for tech support faster than you will get an answer back off the web. If you use their chat or something. Been there, done that.
The web has, some people on the web have said they've called them and they haven't been able to help them. Anyway, I figured it was worth asking with all these experts.
Yeah.
Still in attendance. I'll keep looking. If I find it, I'll let people know.
You'll let me know.
Okay.
And Bob G has a really good idea where a lot of groups are doing 30 minutes of social before the meeting. And he says that when you send out your invitation, you say the Zoom session starts at 6:30. The meeting begins at 7. And so people have 30 minutes to chit chat or to be reinforced with reading readiness left to right and take them all the way through the Zoom bar very quickly. Or they hang out afterwards. I believe the APCUG board meeting, after we had one guy who came in with a username as unhappy user, by the time their board meeting and their chit chat afterwards, he became a happy camper user because he realized he could get social, you know, work with the gallery view with all his buddies at the computer club. But that's a good idea. Call it a session, and then your meeting begins at 7. So if they want to come in and chit chat or a little reinforcement, or they can be there at 7 o'clock. And don't forget, you need 3 hosts. You need a co-host to monitor the waiting room. So the person who's running the meeting is footloose and fancy free. You need another one to monitor the chat box. If you have somebody giving a presentation, also make them a co-host, and all 3 of those people can also share their screens. And they have a lot of controls, not as much exactly as the host, but just for good movement about what is happening. If the host tries to monitor the waiting room or the hands up or things like this, he or she gets bogged down in that, and everything kind of grinds to a halt. Or one time I spent 10 minutes in a waiting room and I finally left and there is no music. And the people said, oh, I'm sorry, you know, I was giving the presentation. I didn't notice anybody was there. And I thought, well, if you had a co-host, you know, so think about the co-hosts. Very easy to select somebody to be one.
Edward Kenny has been patiently waiting to have a turn, so let's give Edward a chance.
He's from Huntsville, Alabama.
Yes, I use Firefox, and I put temporary bookmarks in my bookmarks toolbar there, one for each track. That way I can just click on. I have to look up what the link is. That helps.
That was always Jim Evans' idea, that you should bookmark the tracks and there they'd be for you, and then you get rid of them after the meeting's over.
You mentioned the waiting. What's the waiting room?
When we set up your meeting, you're going to have a waiting room, and your people will all be in the waiting room virtually, so to speak. And when you're ready to start the meeting, you can let them in from the waiting room, and then after the meeting starts, if you have a co-host, then they can pick up all the late birds that come in late, and you don't have to worry about a pop-up that says Joe Blow is in the waiting room. Your person handling that can let them in. It's a security measure.
Yeah, I did a couple test meetings with my free account, and I did see that pop-up there. I have several computers going, and I saw the pop-ups for the people, and I had let myself in.
Right. You have to set that up in the settings to turn that on, that you want to have access to a waiting room. One question I can answer, Joe or Jeff wanted to know how you make someone a co-host. Only the host can make somebody a co-host. And when you're the host, you can go into the participants menu and hover over them. In your more menu, it says make them a co-host, and then you have to confirm that. And that's always good, because today I was the host to start with, and I made Judy and David co-host, and my internet went out. And so when I went out, one of the two of them, unbeknownst, became the host. And then when I came back in, I took back over the hosts, but then I gave it to David just because I thought it was my computer, but some others. So it's a host job, and only a host can do it. A co-host cannot make another co-host.
Jeff, Greg, and Art can help you with that.
Yeah, I have one more thing. We had a presentation by, I'm sure you know, Jerry Minich, Florida.
Never heard of him.
Jerry Minich.
He's advisor from Southeast, and he gave a presentation to our group in April. And I see what the co-host. He didn't have a co-host. He was having a lot of technical issues. I'd actually have to jump in there and say, hey, your screen sharing stopped, or the meeting stopped, or something, and he didn't realize what was going on. So I guess a co-host would have caught up things like that, right?
It depends on your internet connection. When I first got on with this really lousy computer, more than usual, I got a pop-up that said my internet connection is crummy. It hasn't popped up since, but that's when you guys were hearing me cut out. That happens. I've seen that. I've seen people freeze. There's just so many people out there, and my node is down at the bottom of the hill that's about 3 blocks from me. When it was a central office, it was in my front yard, so to speak.
So we're gonna next Saturday we're gonna have our Zoom meeting. Unfortunately, I'm the only one that really has an experience with Zoom, so I won't be able to have a co-host.
Well, yes, you will, because the training I'm going to do, you're going to invite your other leadership to work with us.
No. Okay.
Okay.
Not much time to do it.
Then we got Lloyd and Dorothy in the waiting room.
And Bob's got his hand raised.
That's what I said. Bob, we'll go with Bob, and then we'll go to Lloyd and Dorothy. Senior
moment. See, you made me wait so long, I forgot what I was going to say. One of the reasons when you're doing the actual meeting, if you are the host, the best thing you can do to have and avoid internet access problems, don't use Wi-Fi. Plug it in. If you plug it in, you don't have the problems that Wi-Fi do. Unfortunately for me, to plug mine in, I'd have to run 25 yards worth of wire to get there. But it's still a better idea than using Wi-Fi.
I used to have a 50-foot cable from the back bedroom that was the office down the hall through the dining room and into the family room where I'm sitting. And I had to move my modem, so it's just right over here, because I prefer to be hardwired. It works much better for me. And the cable was the exact same color as my porcelain floor tile, so I just kind of ignored it for years. But now it's the thing of the past.
Okay, Lloyd.
Unmute yourself, thank you.
Yeah, I did. I found out what the system 1132 error message is for those that are interested. System files may be damaged, one of them or many of them, who knows. What I can do is I can post the link in the chat box, and it's wiki errors, so it's not, you know, you're not going to something like Google where you're going to get hit with every bombarded advertiser around. So I'll just post it on the chat box, and you can take the link from there, okay?
Thank you.
Was it error 1132 or 1133?
32, 1132.
No, 1132. I've got it here. It's a wiki errors. Okay, so I'm just going to copy.
Put it in the chat box.
There it is.
Thank you.
Okay. What did Dorothy is sitting so patiently? I don't know where she is.
Yeah,
there you are.
She's in Vancouver, living the good life.
So I'm just saying that when they pop, sometimes they got the hands up, they don't pop up on my screen.
So Hi, everyone. I'm Dorothy Cursway from Victoria, BC, Canada. Judy joined our Zoom session there last week. And yeah, like George said, we don't have many people coming on it so far. We did do a trial one with 21 people, and then we were doing the free version and it cut off at 40 minutes. So we purchased a pro version. But when we went to do our class last week, there was only really 14 people, taking off the teachers that were there. But my question is, if we want one of the speakers from APCUG
Hello.
to present.
How you doing?
Herman, mute yourself. John,
present.
mute him, please.
If we,
Sorry, Dorothy.
that's okay. If we wanted someone to present to our club, would you create the Zoom meeting?
They will.
They will. And then we would be able to send it to our members via email.
There's two ways. First, you have to do the Speakers Bureau request, but you can create the meeting URL. You can have your meeting at the beginning if you have a short business meeting, and the speaker just clicks on the link like everybody else, and you make them a co-host, and they share their screen. After they give their presentation and you have the live Q&A, they can walk away and you can continue on and do. Many of the presenters hang out and, you know, just hang out with you till you're finished with your meeting. But if they don't want to, they just end the meeting for them and go away.
Oh, okay. Sounds perfect. Thank you.
Bob G.
I'd be more than happy to host it. There won't be any problem with time at all.
And how long were you on with Channel Islands?
From 8 o'clock in the morning until 2 in the afternoon.
Enjoying every minute of, I'm sure. They have a 2.5-hour Q&A every last Saturday of the month, their meeting. That's
Lloyd's meetings are like that too. In Toronto, we start at 7:30, and I usually give up around 11:30 at night.
Oh, Bill James has told me he's been there till the middle of the night, early morning. That happens with Zoom.
That's a nice thing about it. Another answer to Ed, and where was that, Alabama? Somewhere in the South, anyway.
Edward Kenny.
Yeah. The waiting room is a security, one of the securities that you really should use, and it's a filter so you can see who's coming into the meeting. So if you don't recognize a name, you can at least quiz them a little bit and try to figure out who they are. The other thing that Ron Brown and I are using in our Tech for Seniors every week is 5 minutes. We start at 11:30, and from 11:30 to 12 in the morning, my time, it's earlier in his time, we use that as a social hour like this, just people chatting back and forth and talking to each other. And when the meeting starts, we give it about 5 minutes, and then we lock the meeting. And what the lock does is no one else can join the meeting. And that way you don't have to worry about somebody coming in and either bothering you or just somebody interrupting the meeting, just coming in. And you've got much more control over it. So yeah, it might limit some people, but they will soon learn to be on time.
My example to that is in the legal department, when the general counsel called a meeting, we were expected to be there at 10 o'clock. We had glass on both ends of the conference room. He locked the door. And you'd see whether it be attorneys, paralegals, admins, they'd come and you'd see them press their nose up there like that with this god-awful look on their face, and he'd just go away. You weren't here when it started, therefore you're gone. Jeffrey, over to you. Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi. This is Jeff Wilkinson. I'm from Sun City Computer Club in Las Vegas. And we were just, because our association is a senior association, senior living community, we were locked down out of our association facilities. So our meeting room was taken away from us temporarily. So we started, and I started by having a meeting with Jitsi, which is a free open source thing. And I tried that because it was very easy to use with simply a link, well, browser link. But it didn't have, it wasn't very robust. So then I tried Zoom, and we did a couple of meetings with Zoom. But we're about to settle on using WebEx. One of the reasons is we have a member who is a instructor for doctors in WebEx, the use of WebEx. And she's alerted me to a whole lot of extra features. But in seeing this meeting today, I'm wondering if I'm making a mistake by standardizing on WebEx at this point.
Bob G., would you like to speak to that?
One is simple to use, usually has no problems. I've had conferences or presentations with a club in Hawaii, and their connection was a hotspot on their cell phone, and we had a perfect presentation.
Yep.
I haven't been able to do that with any of the other ones, because as soon as the integrity of the internet goes down the slightest little bit, that's the end of the meeting.
Jeffrey, one thing, I'm so glad that Sun City Summerlin is finally getting their act together and joined the online world, because all of us have lost our rooms too. And I highly recommend Zoom over WebEx. These people left WebEx because they wouldn't let them upgrade to what they thought it needed to be. I'm sure it's gotten better over the years, but Eric left with 40 engineers from WebEx to start Zoom back in the day. And $14.99 a month or $449 a year, it's dirt cheap. Especially you could do you have so many special interest groups. They could all have their meetings with a Zoom account.
Thank you.
And the other thing is somebody sent a question to Chris Gould with Geeks on Tour. And there's a way that I, as the administrator of Zoom 3 and 4, which is what I'm going to do with Edward's Huntsville meeting, is I can create the meeting and get the invite ready for him, and I can, it's called, I can make him the host of the meeting. It's called Claim Host, which is a stupid name, but I have instructions on how to do that. It's like Pierre with his 12-6 in Westchester. Does he really want to go as the person who puts the meetings together to every single SIG? In this instance, I don't have to be there. Edward logs on with a host code and the encrypted URL I send him, and he immediately changes himself to a host and sets up the meeting room with the co-hosts and everything, and clicks on the waiting room first, and then admits everybody in. At the end of the meeting, he ends it. I'm home in California. I've set it up. He's in Huntsville, Alabama. He is running his own meeting. Super simple. That would go for classes and a lot of special interest groups if the person who's in charge of the account doesn't want to attend every single one. John?
Responding to a comment in the chat, Art was asking about the meeting rooms, and we aren't talking about that much because we found out that if you put people into meeting rooms, you can't use screen sharing. And so
breakout rooms, John?
Breakout rooms, yeah.
According to the link, the website, you can.
Is that something brand new? Because I checked too, and it said the only place you can share your screen is the main room.
I just recently checked. Maybe I was wrong.
Oh, no. Hey, we learn something new every day, David, because they keep changing everything. I mean, I'll get in touch with John and Bill and say, I've got to revise my how-tos again.
Yeah. Well, I just said someone could check it. It said that people in there can share the screen.
We'll check it out.
Yeah, because they also said you got sound in the waiting room, and we keep saying, no, you don't.
There is no sound, and trust me, according to Oded, there's not going to be any music either.
Yeah.
That's not high on Zoom's list of things to do.
Yeah.
Bill James used the breakout rooms for his Toastmasters group. It was their second meeting, and he was doing the regional contest in his area in Oklahoma City, and they'd only had one Zoom meeting, and Toastmasters is pushing it. It works wonderfully. And they used the breakout rooms for the judges and somebody else just to talk among themselves. And that worked wonderfully.
Judy, this is John Kraut. About 10 days ago, I was in a breakout room where the share screen button did appear. I did not use it, but it was at least available.
I will check that out.
I was using 4.6.12 at the time, not version 5. I only installed version 5 at, I believe, the beginning of this week.
I did last night.
Judy?
We'll check it out, and I'll put it in the chat notes and let you guys know.
Judy, I had a comment for Jeffrey. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. As I mentioned earlier, when we did our poll, 80% of the people used Zoom. So I think WebEx would be a really bad idea because everybody uses Zoom. I mean, literally, nobody uses WebEx. Like, who knows how to use WebEx? And the vast majority of everyone today, they're all using Zoom. So you should go with a common standard. At least people understand how to use it. It's simple, right? And
it's like they said, they can, you know, get a free account and they can play with it with their friends and relatives.
Yeah.
And I was on a GoToMeeting, and I thought, oh, you know, this looks really simple. Cost is kind of comparable. And it was a congressional debate in my area. And it said, test your sound. And so I clicked on it, and it did this really cool music. And I couldn't find any place to turn it off. And I was clicking on everything, just pointing, and nothing popped up. So I got out of it, and wise person that I am, when I went back in, I just bypassed check your sound. But I mean, it just kept going on, and I thought, you know, you'd think they'd have something that when you pointed to it said you're done or something. Bob.
The security feature in Zoom, as of a certain day, I think it's the end of this month, you also won't be able to do anything through the China connection. I mean, you can turn it off right now, but it will no longer be available unless you actually live in China. Nothing will go through China.
As of April 28, teachers had the opportunity to select China as a data center if they had students in China or in that area. But again, when they had the big to-do about, oh my gosh, some of the data went through China, nobody saw it. It's all locked down. Nobody can see it. But at this point in time, if you mention China more than usual, everybody comes unglued. And they're actually working on a data center for the Mideast. Of all places, they said they're getting a lot of accounts from the Mideast, and they want to have them have their own data center over there. APCUG chose the US, Canada, and Australia as our data center. So when I was communicating with Australia, they definitely were going through there, and who knows, I might have been going through that data center too. But if you have a pro account, you need to set up which data centers you want your meetings to go through, and you can change it at any time. But that's something you need to do, and if you wanted China, you missed that boat. Bob.
You'd also realize Zoom, what everybody complained about, and you shouldn't really be using anything except a very, very secure app. If you're doing financials, if you're doing secret stuff, and I don't know of any presentation or any chit chat that we do that would be considered security related or government. We just don't do those things.
They have totally different programs for HIPAA, and hospitals, they have to sign all kinds of documentation that nothing's going to get out to the world with HIPAA. And they also have a completely different program for the government entities. Although the FBI said you shouldn't be using it, and I said poo-poo. So Jeffrey, you like all our comments on how you need you guys to get going and use Zoom?
Well, yeah, the problem is I just got
I'm going to get in touch with Tom and David, okay, and say, you guys should be using Zoom.
Well, Yeah, unfortunately, I just got everybody out to figure out how to use WebEx, and I have a meeting scheduled on Tuesday, and I'm debating whether I should try and change it or I don't know. So,
Well, like I said, reading readiness left to right on the Zoom bar. That's all you have to do. Teach them, show them how to do 4 things. They will explore everything by themselves because you see, you guys aren't sharing your screens. You could be checking your email for all we know. I could have been trying to keep getting up my PowerPoint presentation. We don't know what you're doing. You could be practicing with everything down there or just noodling around. We would just prefer you didn't share your screen, at which we had happen at a meeting the other night. All of a sudden, you know, this guy shared his screen. He'd spent most of his time fiddling around, and when we finally got his attention, he shared his screen and everybody yelled at him.
Jeffrey can always do the meeting with WebEx and then later say, now let's try it with Zoom and see what you think.
yeah, well, we had tried Zoom, and it actually worked quite well. And one of the other powers that be recommended we go to WebEx. But,
okay, well then that's good because if you've used it before, then they can see, well, here's WebEx. Did we like it as well, or do we want to go back to Zoom?
Yeah, the issue is
the computer booters in Arizona, they are using WebEx because that's what their webmaster uses.
Right.
Period.
Yeah, we have some unique, well, they're maybe not unique, but we have some challenges. We have a large membership, and it's all seniors, and some of them are, like was mentioned before, they barely know how to turn the computer on. So it's a training session every time you try and conduct anything new. But as the current president, I really want to move forward with this stuff. I mean, we're way behind, I can see.
I really like your president's messages and enjoy including them in push.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And also Thompson David's articles are first class.
Yeah.
Judy, I'd like to just make a little message and point out that in the East Coast, it's dinner time.
Yeah, I'm getting hungry.
Oh, Huey.
Yeah, you have to remember that we had a presentation earlier on shopping and food. And that was a couple hours ago.
I got toilet paper at Costco. I am the happiest camper known to man. I went up there and I have tried other toilet paper and I'm telling you, it sucks big time. And I took a chance. It's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for senior days. And they have changed them. They're on from 8 until 9. So I leave the house at 8:30 and I get there by 8:45 and you just waltz in. And I saw nothing coming my way in the carts on Tuesday. And I asked the guy and he said, we get deliveries every day. And he said, one day we'll get toilet paper and the next day we'll get paper towels. And we don't know which one we're going to get. So I thought, okay, Wednesday, I will try again. It was paper towel day. So everybody was streaming out with paper towels, including me, and I got a couple of other things. So I thought, I'm going to go back on Thursday, waltzed in, and they had pallets of toilet paper in every single aisle. I could not believe it. And I got my toilet paper, and I got more paper towels too. My son used to say, I'm so glad you're still using the Costco products, Mom. Well, you know, you get 30 rolls of toilet paper. Well, I had 3 kids at home, so we went through it quickly, but it lasts me forever. And so just for grins, I went back Thursday to see how much TP was left. There weren't pallets in the aisles, but in the back of the store where they usually have it, they still had some. And I thought, well, good to know, but I don't need to come back now.
I found hand sanitizer in 7-Eleven.
Oh, Lord. In Next Door Neighbor, people, have you guys, by the way, do you advertise your meetings in Next Door Neighbor if you have one in your area? Now might be a very good time to start doing that with an let us know if you'd like to attend thing, because they're sitting on their hands twiddling, you know, their thumbs too, so to speak. And you might not have gotten them out to an in-person meeting, but they might, you know, attend an online meeting and get hooked. Who knows? Does anybody have anything else to talk about? Mary Frances, I'll let you know about it. John is the John are you the person who's going to send me the chat for this?
He can, I can, we both can.
Somebody, one of you guys send me the chat, and that will be the first thing I do this afternoon, is go through the chat and again send it to everybody who's signed in, and you will get that before close of business today. But don't forget, I'm on California time, and when Don Singleton would want something from me, I always used Hawaii time because that was our last group in our time zone. But I'll get it to you before midnight my time tonight.
Yeah, John,
David, you send it because I've lost part of it.
No problem. I can take the chat, but as I said, you need to go in and get the stats because you set the meeting up in your Zoom.
Right. I can do that. Judy, I'll also tell you that on your thing about Hawaii, that when I was talking with Chris last night, she said, Judy said I need to get the presentation in, by the end of the day. And I said, well, if you use Judy time, you got extra 3 hours.
Thank you. Hey, listen, Bill James and I are up till 2 or 3 in the morning, and bear in mind he's 2 hours ahead, ahead of me. He said last night, I'm going to go to bed early. I got his last email at 3 o'clock. My time as I was going to bed. This Zoom thing in all the groups has been a really big time consumer. My poor chair, the cushion used to be thicker, and now it's just going down. I spend so much time in it. Yeah. And John, I love your background.
Yeah. Oh,
nicely done.
Bill was in our meeting this morning, so he got up early.
Yeah. Oh, I know. He doesn't apparently require much sleep. So if we've degenerated talking about Bill James speech patterns, sleep patterns, do we have anything else to discuss about Zoom? And I will share one more thing. When I was working with the Naples group, PC Bug, to get them online with this, one of the guys went into his photos from when he was in the Navy back in the early 70s, and it was the naval base in Spain. And all of a sudden, slowly coming through were pictures of all of the ships that were in the harbor, and it was so cool. Same thing with APCUG down in San Diego. A lot of retired Navy people down there, and they have the same kind of thing in the background of the ships. And one guy had his sub as a static one, but the other ones were going through.
Yes, Huey?
2 things. One, when I first started using Zoom, one of the ways I learned how to use it was I would be the only person in a meeting.
Yeah.
And I would record, and I'd do some tutorials. Mm-hmm. And then I'd be able to play those tutorials back at a meeting, so I didn't have to worry about doing them live or having issues and so on. So it was a great way to make 5-minute, 10-minute little tutorials on how to do certain things. The second thing is, Judy, you want to respond to that?
No, I'll be after you.
The second thing and one of the guys in my user group, the Sarasota group, is a member of a naval retirees. They're an association of all the guys that worked on served on one ship, which is now, the ship is in retirement. And so all of the fellows are up in age, and they have a reunion every year. This year would have been their 26th or 27th. And so he came to me and says, there's something we can do in Zoom. And I said, by all means, we're putting it together. We're doing it next week. We've got over 40 people coming, and that's what they normally get at one of their services. And it's a memorial service, and they did a video that is just fantastic of the whole service, and we're just going to play that, and then they're going to have some discussion, and that'll be it. So it'll only be about a half an hour, 40 minutes total of the meeting, but it's still, they get together and they're going to be able to have their annual memorial service.
Outstanding. I just wanted to mention, even if you just have a free 40-minute account, you can create your invitation, and you don't have to go anyplace else. Up at the top, you can click on Start the Meeting, and you're in your Zoom meeting all by yourself. And then you can go in and play with all the controls and everything and figure out how to do things and share your screen and noodle around and you're the only person there, you haven't had to send an email out to yourself or anything. You merely click on start the meeting. Diane Binder, you're with Royal Highlands, aren't you? Are you with Royal Highlands?
Yes, I am. And
have we convinced you to start using Zoom with your group?
I think you have. I just sent out an email asking them. Thank you.
Too cool. I appreciate it. That is way cool. Jerry will be so pleased.
Yeah.
Yes.
Judy,
Ellie only has to work on the Hawthorne group.
Yeah. Judy, I've heard rumors that Zoom may have dropped the 40-minute limit.
That's true for educational institutions who apply for it.
Everybody else was getting it. They got a notice at 40 minutes saying, we will extend your meeting. And at the end, it would pop up and say, create another meeting right now and you'll get more time next time. And everybody's told me they get so flustered when that comes up, they don't know what to do. And the next time they're back to 40 minutes. John Kraut has raised his hand.
Yeah, my son has a free Zoom account and he does a lot of, well, his friends are night owls. They do a lot of late night meetings. And they have seen that happen where they hit the 40-minute limit and Zoom comes on and says, okay, this time we're going to let you keep running. It appears to happen when Zoom servers are not heavily loaded. So it's less likely to happen in the middle of the day when there's a lot of commercial use. And it's more likely to happen evenings and weekends. That doesn't mean it's going to happen every time. As I say, educational outfits now get to use it, and some of those have weekend sessions. So it's there's a certain amount of risk associated with doing that with a free account.
But you can always create two URLs, and the San Luis Obispo group, Central Cal, did that for years. They had their board meetings for 40 minutes. They took a 10-minute break, and then they came back again for another 40 minutes.
Right.
Now they bought a $149 account because they're Zooming, and they Zoom for at least 4 hours on a Sunday. Bob Bowser raised his hand first. Unmute yourself.
I just had a little experience with the free version. Mike, I'm from Kansas City, senior computer users of the greater Kansas City area. And we've actually picked free conference call to do our meetings right now. It's been fairly successful. Always wish there were more people, but we've had a number come. But on my free Zoom, because I have a free Zoom account as well. In fact, one of my coffee mates, we got a little coffee group going on Tuesday mornings. He's with us today right now. But it's been kind of interesting. The first 2 times we used it, we got the 40 minutes done, and they didn't even stop us or anything. We just kept going. The last couple times we've met, it stopped us at 40 minutes, but we all decided to keep going, and I started the meeting right up. I didn't have a break or anything, and that worked just fine as well.
Cool. Yeah, did everybody, I mean, back in the day, a lot of us used free conference call for phone conferences, and they have branched out into the video conference world. And Bob's group, CENTCOM, is the only group of APCUG that is using it. We have one group that's using WebEx and so on, and it's Bob G.
I've noticed something lately. We used to be able to start a presentation, sharing our screen and then pick what we wanted to do. But now you seem to have it already has to be started if you intend to share it. You can't start it afterwards. I don't know when that started, but unless you remember that, hey, you better bring up your PowerPoint, because if you want to share it, you won't be able to unless you had started it prior to actually sharing your screen.
If you share your whole screen, you don't have that problem.
And I think that there's a setting in the main setup for security that you can only share a certain program or something, but check in that.
Will do. Thank you.
Any questions? Anything you want to share? JJ from LCACE group is probably ready to do his second Zoom meeting. They had an extremely successful first meeting, and it was way cool because their president, Phil Bach, went around the room and asked every single person that was at the meeting what they've been doing since the last time they met, and everybody had a story to tell. And one guy rubbed my nose in it when he said, you know, like, you know, I didn't have anything else to do, so I drove into Wisconsin and bought 99-cent a gallon gas. I could have hit him side the head if I had been close to him. Ours just broke $3, except Costco and Sam's is $2.36, but they never mentioned those. But it was really interesting to hear. There was one lady who, I loved her talk. She had gone to Temple with this friend in Pennsylvania, and then she'd gone with her daughter to someplace else, and she said it was time for their, you know, Saturday meeting. She and her husband didn't want to go because they'd already been to 2. And I thought that was priceless. And that lady, she knew so much about technology. And JJ, you tell her, I was so impressed with her. And she's got this white fluffy hair out here. She looks like somebody's kindly grandma. And boy, did she know her stuff. JJ, please unmute yourself.
Yes, that was Bobby Jacobs. She's been with the club. She is our secretary for the club, and she's been here for a while. But she owns a computer consulting and repair business. But she is very into computers, and she's very intelligent, very knowledgeable. She's been with the group now for about 10, 12 years. Our group just celebrated our 37th year last month, so we've been around. As you can see behind me, the club started out as an Atari group, so that's why I got the Atari logo behind us. But yeah, we have some pretty informative seniors in our group, but like a lot of other senior groups, some are reaching out to learn, some are very knowledgeable, but we are all members helping members, or should I say seniors helping seniors.
And JJ and Phil were on a local senior radio show and got to talk about it. And they even were kind enough to talk about APCUG, which I thought was way cool.
Yeah.
And you will find all about in reports. It will probably be to you next week. And I don't think any of you have probably missed not getting it yet, but it will get to you next week.
Yeah. Lloyd has got his hand up.
Yeah, okay, thanks for recognizing me. This is directed towards Judy. Judy, you mentioned before about having some problems with, let's say, showing or streaming, let's say, a video from YouTube in a Zoom meeting. I don't run into those problems, but I have learned certain things that I'd like to mention. And that is that the best program for playing the videos in Zoom is YouTube. I mean, in Chrome. Is the Chrome browser, Google Chrome browser. That works, and the reason why I like it is that you can go backwards and forwards without locking up or freezing. The second thing is, and again, I'm technically oriented, so let me just say this. You had some issues with your PowerPoint. If you really want to, what you can do is, and if you want to go full screen in your PowerPoint presentation, hit F5, okay? If you want to, if you are on a certain slide and you want to start PowerPoint at that slide, you hit Shift F5, you go full screen. And when you go F5, I meant that you go full screen right off the bat. So F5 and Shift 5 are your friends, just to let you know. The other thing I want to find out is, when you said that you'd like to save the streaming videos and make it a file, what program do you use to make a file out of those videos?
Oh, sometimes you can actually download them, depending upon, I don't know what the difference is. You can download them directly from YouTube because there's a little down arrow that says you can. And I use this program from some university, Computer Hope, is that what it is? And you put your little thing in there and your URL, and it tries to get you to buy a program, and I'm happy with 720. And it downloads with no problem. But no, I've never done a video in my life. I am a mom and a Grammy and a teacher, and I'm a sharer of information. Many people have told me You need to use Chrome with your videos, and the best thing to do is download them from their experience. So I share things like that so everybody kind of learns through other people's mistakes, so to speak, or
Okay,
how-tos, or
believe it or
gotchas.
not, I'm just going to interject right now. If you want quick and dirty, actually you can use Zoom, and you could save the Zoom. You have a meeting with yourself, basically. You turn off everything else, turn off the video, and it works. The only thing is you see the mouse moving up. You know, if you're having full screen, you're going to see the mouse clicking on here or there. But that is one thing I know. And I see Bob's hand up, and I know what he's going to talk about. I know it right off the bat. Go ahead, Bob.
Okay, over to you, Bob G, because Psychic Lloyd knows what you're going to say.
I get a plug-in for Avast one way or the other. If you're using their secure browser, it happens to have a YouTube downloader built into it. So if you go to YouTube, all you have to do is hover your mouse any place on that, and you have an option to download that video.
Thank you, I forgot that. Adding it to my notes.
Okay. We're still past dinner time here. Anything
Well,
else?
I haven't had breakfast or lunch, okay, David?
I know.
Does anybody have anything else they would like to talk about?
JJ has his hand up.
I expect those people who are not using Zoom with their meetings to let me know that you are, so I can add you to my list. I do have to share with you, I have a faithful few who reply to my emails. I sent one out on April 16th and said, if you are still meeting online, will you please get back to me and tell me what you are using? My faithful few got back, but I already knew what they were doing. So we have 134 member groups on a Friday night, which was a week ago last night. I actually went to every single website to see if there was information on the website other than canceled, that they were having their meetings online. So if you are having your meetings online, that should be on your website. You know, it's just kind of a routine click and look and scroll through and things like that. But you could be nice people and answer my emails. So read my emails in the first place and then answer them would be way cool. JJ.
To add on what Bob was saying, I don't know if it's just in Chrome browser, but if you hover over the video that you're watching, usually up in the upper right-hand corner, it will allow you to download the video. For some of the presentations that I put together, I'm using TechSmith's Snagit, which works. We were using Snagit when I was working as a graphic designer on base, and you can capture videos or pictures in Snagit. But that's just one of the options that I use for downloading videos.
And a lot of people use Applian, APPLIAN. Anybody else have anything to share? Because all of our East Coast people are leaving. And Art, you're in San Diego. You don't have to leave yet. See you Wednesday night. I have one more thing to share. Bill James does a presentation called Your Phone is Like Your Swiss Army Knife, and he's an Android kid. And he was chatting with Huey somewhere along the line, and Huey turned him on to an app called Visor, V-Y-S-O-R. And last night at PC Community, for the very first time, they had actually put in a Speakers Bureau request for May 8, and the meeting was actually May 1st. And Lola got in touch and said, what's going on? And Bill said, I can do it anyway. And fresh out of the box, he demoed, live demo with his Android phone that we all could see on our screens via Zoom. And it was the coolest thing. And he had his regular PowerPoint presentation about, you know, your phone is like a Swiss Army knife. And we got to see him turning his lights on and off like he does when he goes to Santo Domingo. The camera that was watching his back door at all times. And we could actually see live all of his smart home because he's a smart home person. And it was just too cool for words. And for the first time out, it was an outstanding presentation. So thank you so much, Huey. And Bob's nodding his head, Bob G. So VYSOR, and give it a try. apparently there isn't anything out there like that for iPhones. Is that correct, Huey?
Bill did send me a nice note thanking me for that and did mention it. And he did send me something that there is something that you can use for an iPhone or an iPad that's apparently similar or does work. So I haven't tried it yet.
I'll check with him because I'm a Windows kid through and through, and Android. Lydia, it's a very small app that allows you to connect your phone with a USB cable to your laptop, and then he went from his PowerPoint presentation, and then all of a sudden there was his phone, and he was manipulating it and going through all his smart home stuff and showed us how he banks online. He did not share his bank account information though. And so much that, he spends his birthday down in Santa Dominga. He can turn his lights off and on. He can check his security cameras from down there, all with his Android phone. And it was a really cool presentation. And I'm sorry, John, that's the one he's going to be giving at the August VTC. So you guys are off the hook. And John Kennedy is going to be giving a live TeamViewer presentation, and Bill James is going to give a live Windows Quick Assist presentation at the APCUG group down in San Diego next Wednesday. Art had the opportunity to take my place and participate in their second dry run. So we're trying to come up with some innovative things for groups that we don't have before. Ron Brown has many presentations that are not about your favorite utilities. Bob G's security presentation has humor, and it's updated and changed every single year. So take a look at the Speakers Bureau group list, and there's presentations out there that aren't I love the cat, Joel, that are not the run-of-the-mill ones. I have a former congresswoman's cat who sleeps at my feet here and snores. And when I'm online with Bill, his dog Lucy's snoring, and good old Mr. Mix is by my feet snoring too. It's ever so fun.
As long as you're not snoring, we're all right.
Hey, I'm up so late sometimes I darn near fall out of my chair. Bob G, and that'll probably be it.
Yeah, I started getting interested in, oh, shoot. I guess you can see a new logo over there, but I'm doing some podcasting.
Yeah, I saw that on Facebook. Your name covers up your logo.
It's supposed to. On this, yes, it does.
Yeah.
You need the logo, you need the name in order to find the podcast.
Put the information in the chat box, please. That would be appreciative. Anything else of interest? Are you ready to say goodbye? Oh, Art is still here. See, I shamed him into staying. Would you unmute yourself, please? Press the space bar.
Just a little picture I thought you all might enjoy if I can share.
Art.
Art, share.
Can he share, or does he have to make a vote?
He has to make you a co-host for you to share, Art.
Oh, okay.
That's
well,
the beauty of co-hosts. Nobody else can accidentally share their screen, even if they have something very interesting to show us.
You can see the background I've got made on there. Just a
Oh!
little interesting picture.
It's toilet paper.
You got it.
That's where my Costco toilet paper's been all this time. Ah,
There you go. Okay, that's all.
I love it. I love it. Anyway, I think it's time for us to say goodbye because I can hear the tummies rumbling as we speak. Nothing else? It's been delightful. I've had a good time. I will, send the stuff out. We have a convert maybe with Jeffrey. We have one with Diane. That's outstanding. So, bye.